Go.
You're listening to another episode of Mr. Allard's Neighborhood. This is the place where you're entitled to Brad's opinion. And now for your host, Brad Allard.
Hello, everybody. Today we have the Queen of Burleson, Victoria Johnson.
I don't know. That's a rival title there.
No, Empress maybe. I don't know. Is that? No, back from her. I see. He's added that little feature. Yeah. Okay.
That is a good joke.
Back from the Bahamas. How was that?
It was fun. Now that the kids are getting a little bit older, it's finally a trip, and we all had a good time.
Is it first and third grade? You kids?
First and third, yes.
Yeah, I saw the pictures. I saw a ton of pictures on Facebook.
I know. Isn't that fun? I love looking at everybody.
I asked my
cute.
mom, did you ever take pictures of us when going to school? She goes, what? Just a school. Beat it. You know, y'all are making it sound like they're going to the moon or something, or, you know, there's less drama going to Afghanistan or something. And, you know, my parents are like, what are you doing here? Get out of here. Go to school and whatnot. Here's your sandwich. And they fling it at us.
And that's my threat is if the kids, you know, don't do X, Y, or Z chore when they get home, then you have to buy your lunch tomorrow. And they're like, no, don't make me buy my lunch.
What's the matter with lunch? I mean, I like the pizza.
I liked a number of their things. I don't know. The kids are just like, they like taking their little lunchbox straight to the table. And they don't want to have to get in line with the other kiddos.
Somehow I just don't envision y'all's home ever having those mom-children head knocking sessions. They always seem like, yes, mother, which bow tie looks best on me, please? No. Or little Audrey goes, Audrey. Okay. Yeah. I have a friend who has a daughter named Aubrey, and then you, it's like, all right, Audrey, you know, and she's like helping pick out the dress.
Definitely not.
No, that's not it. No.
She is me in every. Yeah, she's a shrunken version of me.
Kid back to us when she's 16. Let's talk about that.
I'm going to be scared. But my husband reminds me when I was pregnant with her, I'd be like, wouldn't it be great if I had a mini me? And then when she does something, he looks at me and I'm like, listen, I didn't know I had those kind of connections. And he's like, well, since you do, can you ask him to please give me a break?
Yeah. Well, my kids are 31 and 28, so I'm well past that point. But I could see being a parent never ends. And that's just the way it goes.
I don't know. My parents, I'm still not out of their hair.
Okay. Do they live in the area?
Yeah, they live like 7 minutes away.
Well, that's very handy for babysitting.
I couldn't be on council and do all the other things without my parents' support.
Course. Well, speaking of support, I couldn't do this without my sponsor support. Yeah. And I've now, not because I've gotten so many sponsors, but because I've gotten so many sponsors, I had to break them up into two groups now.
Hey.
You know, because, big wheel, what can I say? CrossFit Burleson, 317 Southwest Wilshire. Talk to the ladies over there, Lexi and Bailey. They'll tell you what you can do and what kind of programs they have. I did tell you last time that we have new ownership, right?
Yeah.
And they have some plans and ideas, and you can check them out on the website. But they still got the old favorites as well, the training and all that. You don't do CrossFit because I don't. Well, that's kind of like serious workouts. We're not talking about Mom's Day Out kind of thing, is it?
I broke my foot with my Fit for Mom group. That's how intense we got.
Oh my! They still do that at the Lear Calvin Plaza?
They have one or 2 days where they're on the plaza. They visit different parks, and they've extended. They're in Godley, in Joshua, in Cleburne.
So that's not a Burleson thing?
It is. It's Burleson, Crowley area. And they are just kicking butt. I'm so proud of that group.
I saw one of them, I don't know, when it wasn't quite so hot, and all these moms with strollers.
Yes.
I guess
there are some workouts where you can bring your stroller. There's some mom only, and then they even have like maternity classes at the Hughley. Those are air conditioned for those poor mamas to be.
Well, I got a little distracted here, so back to the ads.
Yes.
Also Shandy Stoggs Deal, if you're going to move into this area, give her a holler, I don't know if my daughter's house was sold last time here, but she helped sell it.
It's fantastic.
And then made it a lot easier because I had no idea what's going on and all these paperworks and all this hair pulling that goes on with that. I couldn't be a realtor for nothing. But Shandy, she loves it. She's been doing it for a long time. I mean, she was doing that even when she was at UNT as a student. She's got involved in real estate, so there you are. Also, well, of course, Otto, the man, our place. Who doesn't know our place? I know if that's in a reward place, you take the kids if they do something special, right?
Yes, and also a group of us moms went there for breakfast after the first drop-off.
Was it like emotional, or they're like, thank God?
No, I think I like routine and structure. No surprise there, right? I like structure. So, no, after we dropped them off, several of the mamas had incoming middle schoolers. So that was kind of fun to talk about their new experience with Kerr or STEAM or wherever they went that morning.
Yeah, well, it's a place to do it, and he's got plans. I know, I haven't been to the Cleburne one, but I heard it's just as good, which doesn't surprise me.
I'm so happy with the location. That's been a cool spot, and unfortunately it turned over into a couple of different restaurants over the years, and I think they just have a prime location.
Also, speaking of prime location, our friends over at Wild Cigar and Culture, go get a smoke, go get you a drink, go get you some decent conversation. I've been over there. I go there about a couple of times a month. Sponsor care kind of thing. Also, podcast host care, so to speak. And it's what I like about it is I could talk without having to shout, and you can have a decent conversation. You could do business there. Last time I was there was in the afternoon, and they had like half a dozen people there with their laptops out, and that's a good way to work. As old timers, grinding away in the office or something, that'd be all right. So it's a good place to do it.
You might consider coming out of retirement if you could sit at the lounge and
that'd be a non-negotiable. Yeah. Also, thank you to Tiffany over at Local Life Magazine. She's working on the next issue right now. This month's issue has to do with financial services, and so check that out. It's always a good read, and also goes to 30,000 homes, and so it's well worth your time and well worth the money. It goes to a lot of places, and she expands a little bit every month. It's expensive actually. It's like she can double her mail out without significant cost. So as it grows in bits
incrementally.
Incrementally, that's the word. Also, we're going to have this new sponsor. I've talked about him, Burleson Buzz, Cody O'Brien. He's joining us for a couple of months as a sponsor, and maybe longer. Who knows? Depends on how y'all respond to his buzz. He comes out on Tuesdays and Fridays. That's it. And he has articles about like y'all's meeting.
He was there last night.
Yes, that'll be the next issue tonight. And he's really, really trying very hard to make this like a news paper, if you will, without the paper, of course.
Right.
And
the local news source.
And so I'm very pleased that he's making this effort. I met with him when he first started this enterprise, and I could tell he meant business. And so y'all subscribe. It's very cheap. It's like less than $5 a month, and so it's pretty cheap. And so go ahead and give him a buzz, so to speak. All right. Because one of the things he'll be reading about is last night's meeting, which really, before we jump into last night's meeting, let's talk about something that has been part of the discussion all summer, and that's the parks and rec and the cemetery and things like that. And there's been a lot of emotion, shall we say, involved in that because, you're talking about
final resting place.
Yes, right. And for some people, it caused them a great deal of unhappiness. Yeah, that they had to wait so long to put their loved ones in there. It's hard to really, if you just look at it on the outside, know all the details.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
It's like, well, even on my last visit with you, we talked briefly. I touched on the expansion and how nice and pretty it was, and the fact that we cut the ribbon, and so publicly it appeared that we were ready to rock and roll, but there were still things on the back end that hadn't been completely worked out, such as a fee schedule. We have to give a little bit of a break to having newer to boards in general, cemetery board members. I want to say we replaced or sat 4 or 5 people to that board. So it was a big shakeup, a big difference. There's also been new park board members. And so that fee schedule had to get, we appropriately want to vet it through our citizen committees because it's affecting the citizens and the people that live in this community. And
it was obvious that it was an emotional issue for some. You know.
And it's hard to talk about final resting place. What is an appropriate, what's enough? Because you got to cover the expenses. What's appropriate when somebody, I'm kind of glad I didn't sit on that committee because you had to make some hard decisions on, what should this cost? What can be still affordable, but a respectful amount that keeps the grounds and everything running? Because unfortunately, we hear about cemeteries. There's even one in Johnson County that was just the administrator of the lots sold all of it and then took the rest of the money and ran. So they didn't invest that money back into the cemetery, and it's abandoned and it looks terrible and sad. Like, can you imagine you go there to visit a loved one and their headstone's crumbling and there's nothing you can do? A lot of times they have restrictions also, like, we only have one headstone company that comes in and lays them. So aside from maybe a small fix, like if it needs some substantial work, we have to wait until that contractor is available to touch that headstone because it's not our property. And so there's a lot of, I just have really been amazed at the small pieces that make up the cemetery and how many players there really are at hand. The city can't just go mess with the headstone. We have to, here's a process because it's not our property. Or, other than mowing, there's just so many layers. And I don't think I even understood that.
Some of the other criticisms about the landscaping at the cemetery that, a lot of, this is probably a problem all throughout the parks, and that is the heat's killing a lot of the vegetation. It's
everywhere. I mean, last night we were talking about a public improvement district, and as part of that, they're required by contract to have so many shrubs, so many trees, this and that. And to keep them, staff has to go out there and count and then hold them accountable. Like, hey, this one's dead. Are you going to replace it? And imagine that on a large scale of every single one of our parks. And that includes the cemetery. That includes the plaza. We have plants and vegetation of all kinds. And this triple degree, I mean, we're all facing it, right? I walked the kids to the front of the school this morning, and I'm crossing back over, and there's like enormous cracks in the ground. Everyone's facing it.
And it's not going to be over anytime soon.
No. And so staff has to keep up with, like, is this tree still under warranty? Like, is it one that was bought in the last year? Okay, we can exchange that one. It's a disaster. But the cemetery was a hard one, and several of us were significantly invested in it, in particular when you're hearing from citizens who said, hey, I'm waiting to bury my loved one. And I don't what's the holdup? What's the standstill? And then that's also, right, government sometimes of it was going through the cemetery board, and then it comes to council, and we only meet twice a month. And so some of that scheduling stuff pushes things out, unfortunately, longer than you would hope. But,
well, I know how invested you are personally in the parks. This is one of your specialty areas, so to speak.
Yeah.
So I'll try to phrase this delicately as possible. Was the ball dropped in this in any way? Was it just bad circumstances, or was maybe things could have been done better than they were?
I'll never say things are perfect in any category. Well, there's always room for improvement. I know two of my colleagues, Adam and Larry, went out and with the parks director and our city manager. And that was the thing, is I think sometimes you need to have boots on the ground and lay your eyes on it. And let's talk through some things here, because individually, we can only know so much and be so smart, but collectively, we're brilliant. And so let's all put our heads together and figure out where are we slacking? Where can we pick up? We have a ton of things under the parks department, recreation and trees we only have one arborist in our entire city staff, and he's not even in the parks department. I mean,
what department would he be in?
He's actually, Eric Oscarson's our public works director, but he's an arborist. And so sometimes we have to go, hey, Eric, can you come look at this tree?
Well, there was some.
So I think,
go ahead.
There's always room for improvement. But I do think, and I hate that it took going to that level to bring attention to something. Understandably, there were heightened emotions, and people were very upset that things were not getting addressed. It's not the only time people have been driven to that point, and it won't be the last, unfortunately. But it is getting worked through and worked out. And because of that, it'll have been a learning lesson for all of us. We'll come out better on the end, right?
Is it possible that we may have expanded too fast on parks and green spaces, public spaces? Because
the cemetery expansion was a long time coming.
Well, it was coming, but I'm talking about the other areas that we've been expanding. Because when we talk, it's like we're opening up new spaces every couple of months.
And our rehabilitation schedule definitely got bumped up and more prioritized. We had parks that hadn't been replaced since they were installed over 20 years ago. And so having the refurbishment projects, have definitely been rolling them out at a very strong pace. We have a current board member on our parks board who works for the city of Fort Worth. And he's like, we're lucky if we do 2 park refurbishments in a year. And we just rolled out like however many we had just completed, 4 or 5. And so, yeah, that could be a thing, is maybe we need to lay off. And we have.
Was it that Larry's contention? I think so. Because I think also, I want to say this. I think people mischaracterized him as being hypercritical of the Parks Department, which he is not by any means, and he had no intention of
coming across that way.
Yeah, well, he came across as, hey, what I saw anyway.
Right.
We need to slow down.
Right.
We might want to put a moratorium on some of these things until we get what we have now under control. And that got misinterpreted, of course, through the media, social media crapola, as he was being highly critical of the Parks Department.
Right.
That's not the impression I got.
I think it's more like, and everyone's delivery, right, is sometimes it's all like in how it's said and how it's delivered. But I think ultimately we were, a number of us are in agreement that, hold on, like let's evaluate where we are. We've been rocking and rolling, and the team has been knocking it out of the park. The families that I see playing at these playgrounds are just enjoying themselves. We get tons of accolades. We're doing a really great job. But that doesn't mean we can't negate the work to keep it all up.
Well, I just think Larry was mischaracterized, frankly, because I've gotten to know him a little bit, and Sherry as well, as a couple. I know how concerned they are about the quality of life issues here in this community. And I think, I saw some responses like, no, that's not what he said.
Yeah.
He's not saying he's critical of the Parks Department. What he is saying is we may have taken off too much at one time. Let's just slow everything else down.
We're hyper focused on new installations, building the new Shannon Creek Park. We've got a lot of focus on improvements, but we still have an obligation to keep up what's already in our
I personally don't think it would be a bad idea to take a moratorium, particularly with because you're going to have to probably repair a lot of the damage this summer's caused. And so this is my opinion, before we jump onto a new space or find another one, so we might end up spending a lot of that money replacing.
The brick is going to need some serious attention. And so, yes, the last meeting that we had, because we haven't passed our budget yet, we have our first reading coming up, shortly. And so I think September 11th or something. I'll pull up the dates in a minute, but so we haven't passed the budget, and so we're still in those talks of, hey, right now is the time to say we had some other things planned. If we hold off on this, well, that can bring up some capacity. If we hold off on this and address, since we know the brick needs so much attention, it's just aged and things advance, right? Like they have, it's called desert air that helps suck out the moisture, and it also keeps down, it cycles the air so that your eyes aren't watering the second you step into there. There's so much equipment and things, but since we built that, it's advanced. And so we need to play catch up, and we need to do right by that building and by the many, many, many citizens who use the facility.
Well, I hope I characterized the tenor of that meeting. I know I'm putting words in Larry's mouth, but I just know that I thought he was unfairly characterized. And I know it's caused some hard feelings, because I know he respects Jen Basham and the job that they do. Anyway, that's what happens though when you get Facebook involved, right? And so that's just part of it. But I'm concerned a little bit. Now, I don't pay direct city taxes, but I do indirectly do, and I am concerned that the more we jump into all these programs, the more we're going to try to overextend ourselves. Okay, we got a couple of comments. Jackie Jones says, I believe we need to take a break from new projects until repairs and maintenance are completed on what you already have. Bill Janish, a moratorium is exactly what needs to occur. I have a feeling routine maintenance and repairs may have been ignored to the point lately that we had to replace items or features that could have had a longer lifespan. I can't speak to that particular point, but because I'm not in the park.
Brick, for example, is 16 years old. I don't know. It's up there.
Yeah.
And things are aging, and you're absolutely right. We need to pay attention and to everything that we have in our system currently, and ensure that the things are running to the best of their ability, that we're catching stuff before it's, ultimately at the end of its life. And that's why we're constantly as a city revisiting, should we change out this major piece of equipment at 5 years or 7 years? Like all of that is continuously being evaluated. And I'm not going to say that anyone has the answers to it all, but like I said, we can always do better. And this is an opportunity for.
I don't think anybody really was personalizing in the way like this is, management's fault personally. This is Jen Basham's fault because we all know what kind of quality job she does, and so does Larry, and so do these people. No, some people just misinterpret because they like to stir the pot. But
we have a staff that's dedicated and they work really hard. There are a lot of irons in the fire, and the citizens, ultimately they're our boss, and we don't have eyes absolutely everywhere. And so it helps to have this network of people that care and are invested in our community to go, hey, I was out walking my dog and I witnessed this. And you're like, okay, let me get on that. Or, I want to bury a loved one and I noticed I can't yet because you don't have a fee schedule. And some of this stuff, because we've been busy and accomplishing a lot, but it doesn't mean we still aren't responsible for juggling the balls that we had up in the air in the first place.
There's been also some irritation, shall we say, about the splash pad because it's not very old.
No, it's a year old.
Yeah, and it's already been under repairs already.
Yeah.
What was the story behind that?
My understanding was I think the UV light needed to be replaced, and I think that's what it was. But right now, everyone's famous line is, any time you're looking for a piece of equipment, whether it's for a car or whatever you need repaired, you better hope that there's one sitting there waiting for you to use, because it's just the supply chain issues are real. And we were on the list for a piece of equipment for the indoor pool from May, and we didn't get it until July. We've been on we're still waiting for another piece that we got on the list for in June. It could be September before we see that piece. And so some of this stuff is just completely out of our control, but it wasn't fun to have to shut down the splash pad,
particularly in this weather.
But we have a responsibility to the citizens to not run it in unsafe conditions. And so until we could ensure that the water was completely safe to play in, we can't run it. And we don't want anyone getting sick or hurt or any infections or whatever other crazy things.
Lawsuit on that one would be interesting. You did not have proper maintenance and
the best thing is how much we communicated that. Like, hey, this is down. We're doing our very best. I mean, almost every day, if not every couple of days, we were updating the community on, look, we're still waiting for this part, or we're doing all that we can to overnight, or, that's all we can do is be honest and upfront with the community on what we have in the works.
What a concept. Transparency. Maybe U.S. Congress could talk about that, but that's politics. That's for another show. But let's kind of shift gears, because there's also, last night you were telling me about the police station was a major topic, and it's going to cost a little bit more than we budgeted, right?
Well,
Tell surprise.
They gave us some options last night.
Like 8 to a jail cell, that kind of thing.
We don't want a jail. I do not want to be in the jail business.
Okay.
But we do. Holding cells have been a topic, and things just cost so much to build right now. And in 1 year, the increases, last year is when we got these estimates from one architectural company of what they thought things were going to cost. Last night we were presented with new increased estimates and some options. And it's like, I think myself and a couple of my colleagues, I believe, based on the conversations that we had, which were very productive last night, is that we're tired of putting Band-Aids on things. Inevitably, it ends up costing us more in the long run, because we're like, okay, well, that only lasted a couple of years when we hoped to get 10 years out of it. Now we're back knocking down a wall, extending, rebuilding, expanding, and it just adds and adds and adds. So what is it going to take to knock out as much as we possibly can with the funds that we have?
Well,
but we know the funds that were passed in the bond package are not enough.
Right.
No.
It's $36 million, right?
I mean, if we just stick to that, we are significant. We have to build with the anticipation that we're going to turn around and do it again in about 5 to 8 years. And is that a responsible way to look at it? In my opinion, no. But we still have a due diligence to say, okay, what can be restructured, moved around? Is there even debt capacity to be able to accomplish whatever other things we're going to try?
Well, that's going to be a topic of conversation.
It is.
With the city, because on the last few elections, that's been a big topic.
Debt. Mm-hmm.
Debt, and how much we've added to the debt. It's been the last 4 elections that I can recall that was a major topic. It's about the acquisition of debt and the addition and how much more we have. And now, are y'all talking about having possibly to add to the debt? Okay. Okay, so you have $36 million. Well, do you have like price tags given to you on these options?
Oh, sure. And now they're estimates.
Right. And which means that they're already, as of last night, they were estimates. Today, they're already been changed by 10%.
Sure. It's like, you have to account for this increase or that increase.
I'm trying hard not to make comments politically. It's so hard, Joe Biden. Anyway, so I'm doing my best. I was going to hurt myself if I didn't say something.
And it stinks because then there's some things that are completely out of our control. Like we need to move a gas line. That's $1.2 million. We can either move it now or we're going to have to move it at some point. If we don't move it now, well, then we're going to have basically 4 different entry points into our police and public safety.
Well, I know that you got a lot of detail, and I'm not going to ask you to go, this one is how they're different, and this one is going to be 2 feet bigger, so this way, blah, blah, blah. Just dollar-wise, I think is what most people want to know first thing.
I mean, I think, council seemed to be in agreement last night that we want to move that gas line. That's a necessary evil that we just have to check off the list, and it'll be at the front of the property because right now it runs through the middle. So we cannot put anything on top of that pipeline except a parking lot. We could not put another building of any size, shape. That's just not going to happen. So we need to get the pipeline moved, which stinks, but it's necessary.
The cost of doing business.
Yep, it is. And so I think we could get, I would say between 37 million and then, let's see, the next one was something like
37 million. That would include the 36, right?
Yeah. So a million in addition.
Okay. Yeah. We don't add those numbers. So relax.
No. That's a good catch. But I mean, I would say for the entire package, depending on what we think we can accomplish monetarily, I think the highest the highest of the scenarios we were looking at was an additional 12 million.
Okay. So actually, I was thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to have to double it. So it's 12 million. No. 12 million is doable, but you're going to have to we're going to have to put things on hold, restructure some things. And it's all about the debt capacity too. As of right now, if we just tried, we don't have $12 million in debt capacity at the moment. We would have to make some changes to be able to do that. And we haven't touched our debt rate. So in your tax rate, there's 18 some odd cents that go toward debt for every, I think the proposed rate proposed is 62 or 63 cents. So of that, 18 cents goes toward debt. And so Adam has suggested, based on last night, that he's been looking at some of those numbers. And if we increased what we paid to our debt by 2 cents, it could free up an additional $10 million in our capacity. So the same as you have a private credit card, and if your $1,000 is your limit and you're maxed out, but you're only ever paying $10 toward it a month, it's going to take you a really long time to pay it off. You'll never pay it off.
Yeah, no. So we increase what we're paying toward our debt. It pays it down faster, and it makes us just 2 cents on moving over into our debt rate.
Yes, but where's that 2 cents going to be taken from?
We have to look at that.
Yeah, I mean, you talk the streets, water, trash collection, salaries, benefits. I think that's going to be the real hard conversation because we'll move it, and so we could build all we need to have for a police station, but we're going to have to either have a hiring freeze or something like that, or maybe some streets won't get repaired as quickly. That's honestly that's going to be a hard pill for a lot of voters to swallow.
It is. We're going to have to significantly look at, and we're talking about this for next budget. So before we even pass this one, we're planning almost 2 years in advance to say what adjustments can be made to work on our debt capacity. so
Right.
that we can accomplish more projects.
Well, you're talking about a reallocation of funds.
Yep.
Is there a conversation about increasing those funds,
I don't,
like tax rates? I mean, or
oh,
other,
no, we're not talking about increasing the tax rate.
okay, or other types of
It's
assessments.
going to decrease again this year.
I know, but you're also needing $12 million.
Yeah.
Okay, this is what, and we're not running the federal government. We get tax cuts.
No.
high
And here's the thing
expenditures,
is
so-
we like when you present what your debt is, it has to be like what you're currently, we could show the bond package, for example, all $85 million of that is what the voters have approved us to go out for. But that's all, like you make your debt rate payment, like what you're anticipating your debt rate will be based on your current debt. So since this is all hypothetical, we couldn't change. We couldn't say let's not bring down the tax rate. Like let's hold it out and then save that money. The state doesn't let us do that.
Okay, it didn't
So you
surprise
can't
me,
be preemptive and say, I know this is coming in 2 years because the construct. Even if we passed this last night and said move forward with Plan 4. It would be a year of architectural work and drawings and engineering and a year to build, 18 months to build it.
right?
And so we wouldn't need to basically rack up that credit until 2 years from now. So we can't tell the state, well, we're going to hold on to this tax rate because we know this is coming. Unfortunately, they just don't let us do that.
Well, not being privy to all the budgetary details, I'm just trying to, in my head, think if we're not going to increase revenue, and we have to reallocate more money away from these projects to debt service, and it's from what I understand about bonds, you can't just willy nilly switch money around in bonds unless it's just some, like there is X amount. From what I recall from the last bond that was passed, a year ago, May or whenever, was that there had certain segments of it that were allocated. And you're not going to have the ability to take this segment
Right.
and allocate it to that segment.
Well, yeah. So like we passed a streets bond package and that money, like you're saying, can't be switched over to public safety.
Right.
And then we know public safety is obviously going to use up their entire
Are y'all counting on increased revenue because our city is growing so
Growth.
fast?
Yeah.
Okay. So
We're hoping. I mean, like that's the projections we have to base everything on is like, okay, we're not anticipating we'll have to go to the voters to say, can we please increase your tax rate? But we're hoping that, which is the whole reason we need police expansion, Fire Station 4, down the line, Fire Station 5, is because we're growing. So it works hand in hand of we know we're going to get bigger, but we're also counting on that growth to be able to accomplish these major projects.
I had Alex on about 6 weeks ago, Alex Phillips, and this business is coming in, this business is coming in. I know this major trade school coming out to the west of us.
Craft Masters.
Yeah, but it's going to be 5 years before we see anything from that. But some of these others are going to be more quickly.
Well, they
rolling
want to
in.
be open actually in like 2.5, I think, but substantially to see
tax
revenue from it.
Yeah.
It would be about 5 years, yes,
Yeah.
before it makes a big dent. But I think with Craft Masters coming online and the focus that we have on the business park on the west side of town, we don't want it. I can't speak for my colleagues, but I would assume that they're in agreement. We don't want this on the backs of all the homeowners. We have to diversify our tax base. We have to have a variety of manufacturing and different types of industry that can help balance out because we want them here. It's jobs, good paying jobs, hopefully for the citizens. That way they live in Burleson, they work in Burleson, their kids go to school in Burleson. But we also acknowledge, like, because we're recruiting these things, because more people want to live here, we have to step up how many police we have out on the streets, how many fire stations we'll inevitably have, and where they're strategically located so that they can respond to an emergency within a timely manner.
Yeah.
So-
I was thinking back to the conversation with Alex, and like 2 hamburger joints are coming in and a salad place is coming in on Summercrest and Wilshire, and they get Payway coming in, which I like.
I do too.
I like Payway a lot.
do too.
And, on and on and on.
And a Mediterranean restaurant's coming.
Really? Oh, yeah, he
Yes,
did
Cava.
mention. Yeah, he did mention that.
Can't wait.
But it still takes time for their revenue to enter the stream, so to speak. And City of Burleson put the money out front for the infrastructure and the water, et cetera, right?
Oh. Well,
to some degree anyway.
Yes, yeah, it's there. I mean, for some of those areas, though, all they are doing is tying in. But when we're talking about the growth on the west side, like when we're talking about that business park, the infrastructure has to be put in before those can come. Yes. Yeah. So we leverage ourselves before the businesses come, but it's inevitable to, we have to get water to them. We have to have roads to get there.
And that comes before the revenue comes in from there.
Yeah.
So I don't envy y'all, because you really are going to have a hard time, because, you know, we need to have not just an adequate police station, we need a very good one.
We need it to be able to serve the community.
Right.
It needs to serve the department for all the things that they're doing and need to be doing in the future.
Right.
And so we don't want to keep, wedging them into things that wasn't, doesn't fit their needs.
You know, it reminds me of my great aunt when she was adding onto her house. You know, she just add onto it. You know, without any real plan. You'd have to go through one bedroom to get to another bedroom, and and that kind of thing.
Yes.
It was a bizarre house, but we can't afford to do that at the civic level, certainly.
No. Well, and you may if you're not thinking far enough out. If you're being short-sighted, it's going to cost you more. We built Allsbury Extension in 2 lanes when we knew it needed to be 4 to begin with. And now it's going to cost us how much more to expand it, to put another lane on each side. It's like, if we have the information, you have your population estimates, you have how many calls public safety communications is getting, the runs that we're getting and the workload, then why are you not accounting for that in your planning?
Some of this is even, I know you're aware of it, but I was amazed at some of the development near HEB. There was a small traffic snarl at the normal entrance one would take to HEB. So I took the street right before it, the one near Torchy's and all that. And I said, I haven't been down the street in a while. And I was amazed at some of the building going on there. Some of the couple of...
Green Ridge? Are you talking about you took Green Ridge?
And there's one, I believe, 55 and older complex out there and that kind of thing. It's like, and they're growing this way. Bill here says population is anticipated to reach 75,000 in 10 to 12 years. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Budgets should not be forced to rework police stations every 8 to 10 years. With city growth comes more employees. I got a little glare on the screen. Paying interest on some borrowed funds will be cheaper than building again in the short future.
Absolutely.
I think so. That's correct as well.
We have studies that tell us, at complete build out, this is what your department, you can anticipate it. Sure, there might be one person in a different department, whatever. You need, at this point, we know with these estimates, with this information that we have, you're right. We can't plan for 8 years at a time. And who's to say, the thing that frustrates me about that is who's to say we have the debt capacity in 8 years, we need to be smart and leverage the dollars that we have and plan appropriately. Is $12 million in addition to what the voters already approved a lot of money? Absolutely it is. But should we take care of all that we possibly can on the front end and not keep adding on a room, and things don't make sense. So you'll be like my great aunt's house. Yeah. And we have to do right by these departments because they're serving our citizens. And it's important that we don't dawdle with taxpayer time and taxpayer dollars.
Here's what the school district has done. Was a lot of people criticized when BHS was built back in the late 90s, and they criticized when CHS was built.
I remember.
Because they said they overspent.
Yes.
Now, if they to expand would be a lot less of a burden than it would be if we hadn't overpaid, so to speak. There was room at BHS's campus for that new practice facility and other things, and they added on to the building. I remember there was a construction project about 20 years ago. CHS is also built for expansion without having to blow up the plans. But at the time, they overspent, so to speak. They could have done it more cheaply.
Sure.
But now, if we have this growth, if we have 75,000, we're going to have a full third high school, and so.
No, don't say that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still mourning the loss of the one high school town.
Me too.
But I just remember those criticisms then.
Yeah.
And so you're probably going to face some of that now, but I guess you're going to have to sell them on the fact that we'd rather pay a little extra now than a whole lot extra 10 years from now.
And you're not going, as a voter, as a citizen, you're not going to want to feel like every time you turn around, you're being you're being asked to expand this, or like we're elected to look at this information as it's presented to us, to make these hard decisions and hold us accountable. Like, you don't want me to come back in 2 years and say, just kidding, can we pass another bond package? Because we failed to give PD or fire or whatever department it is the means that they need to serve our citizens in our community.
I would say that would be a highly controversial discussion 2 years from now.
I would bail.
Bill saying, I'm pleased to see council hit on all cylinders and work well together. We have a great council now. I concur very much. This is what we expect from our city leadership.
It is really fun getting to actually work on issues and come up with solutions together, and we listen to each other and we pitch out ideas, and all of us bring to the table something, a different strength. And that's what we're supposed to do. That's why there's 7 of us with different backgrounds and different perspectives, so that we can together serve the community to the best of our ability.
Well, it does seem like y'all get along a lot better and off and on council business. And
we do.
It's like the school board is the same way. They've been working well for a while now. And I hope that collaboration, that kind of attitude exists for several years. That we don't need any more drama and hair pulling. That was tiresome and tedious and embarrassing. And this is a lot better. This is much more to what we expect.
Let's be issue focused. And I think that's, we have a great council. I agree with Bill and appreciate that sentiment, because I thoroughly enjoy working with my colleagues.
I'm sitting here listening to you, and you're throwing out all this factual information. Did you know this before you became a council member, or had you to learn on the fly?
I had to learn a lot of details. I had general ideas on things. I've worked alongside the city in so many different capacities. So I've understood budget, and I've understood the different, pockets. I understand the difference between property tax and sales tax, and where the sales tax, the pots of money that they all go in.
Right. And this fund goes there and that fund goes there. Good
definitely
heavens.
A lot more detail. And I have a heightened awareness. Before, I wasn't making decisions. I was up on the peripheral, right? I was just a citizen paying attention and involved as a volunteer and serving on committees. But now it's me sitting up there, and I have a duty, and I love this work.
Yeah.
I mean,
it reminds me when I was teaching economics, right? Is that I understood in my head what I was trying to tell people, but the kids just looking at me like I was speaking Greek.
It was probably me.
No, you were right there taking notes, by golly.
I did take rigorous notes.
Yes, and you were like, I was reading John Maynard Keynes the other day. No, it wasn't quite that way. But anyway, but you were very diligent. But a lot of kids are like, what? What are you talking about? Because, and I'd have to find ways to communicate to an audience that isn't as involved in the topic, how I could break it down so they could understand it too. Without talking to them like they're 8.
Like you're speaking Mandarin all of a sudden. Last night, that was an example, because it was like, whatever you just told us, I'm pretty sure I can learn Mandarin faster than what you just told me to comprehend.
Yeah, so I've had to learn over the years to be able to communicate to the audience. And I guess that's one thing that you've been learning as well. Because this stuff you're talking about is technical, it's complex, it's out of the wheelhouse of 98% of us that don't grind through budgets. Fortunately, we have lives. So.
Ouch.
Yeah.
This is my life.
This is your life. This has always been your life.
And being in my kids' school. But
if I were to characterize you first, it'd be as a mother. That's your. I know that's your primary.
I'm obsessed with those babies.
Yeah, so that's your primary identifier, if you will. But I bet you've always been kind of a policy wonk in what they call it.
I love it.
You like these details. You like grinding through the stuff. Somebody's got to do it.
And that's what my husband always says. He has always been like, he does not like politics. He doesn't want to know things. But I've since gotten him more involved. I mean, we were together for almost 17 years. And so he's like, this is it, that we're in this for the long haul. But I'm glad somebody enjoys it, because obviously I know I get lit up. I get real geeky about it. It's almost like drinking a Red Bull.
Well, I guess it does keep you busy.
It does.
But I know teachers or administrators like that grind through educational policy or special ed policy, and like, just give me the Cliff Notes, the dum-dum cards.
Condensed version of this.
Special ed for dummies, for the teachers. Because, that's complex.
But the cool thing is, right now we have a great council I believe we all have respect for each other, to where, like, if that's really somebody's niche and they dig into it and then give us some talking points and some perspective, it's like, oh, well, I appreciate that you really grasp that. And I'm listening to what you're having to say. And okay, I may not have seen it that way, or thanks for helping me solidify how I thought.
Well, and this, what I guess another point I'm trying to make is that it's one thing to campaign on the generalities, but you have to govern in the details.
Correct.
And I have very little patience at any level of government, from national on down, that, are more interested in campaigning than they are governing, because governing's boring and it's a head knocking session a lot. And you got to tell somebody no and somebody sort of yes and that kind of thing. And there's always going to be somebody that's going to be disappointed.
Yes.
But,
all of that.
So I think people should understand that the governing aspect is a whole lot less romantic than, rallies and speeches and, hot sports opinions and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, that's, I've talked to several people about it. When they got into like school board or city council or something like that, they found out
it's not as glorious as they thought.
There's a lot more homework than I thought.
Yeah, a lot of homework.
Oh, that's when I was on that board in Austin those years. I'd get the assignment about 2 weeks ahead of the meeting, and there's a big old stack of stuff I had to go through. And a lot of times it was hitting me right over my head, and I had to learn, okay, one thing I had to learn very quickly, swallow my pride, and ask somebody, what does this mean? Yeah, I don't know what this means. And I'm a, veteran teacher, and I don't know what that means. So,
And,
did they give you
fortunately,
any training for that?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you get ethics training, tell you,
Okay.
like an overview of every department, but you just kind of have to learn as you go. There's some that are better asking questions than others. And the whole thing is a learning process.
Well,
you figure out what works for you. But the cool thing is they don't hand us this big binder. They put it all on this, and then I can scroll and pull up and copy paste, send it to our city manager, explain this, or ask a certain director, can you put this in layman's terms for me? Because I do not understand what this means.
Oh, yeah. And, I think, we're well ahead of an election season, which I hope will be
Non-eventful?
Uneventful. That's
Wouldn't
what
that be
I was saying.
wonderful?
Just say, just should run it, standard run-of-the-mill thing. But,
I hope so.
But I think people who are considering serving at the school board, because we have 2 races there, and we have 3 at the city council, they need to consider what it takes to become adept at what you're doing. Like I'm watching you, you learn how to do this. You may have had a more of a head start than some, but you still had to grind and grind and grind. It's like studying in school.
It is.
And
It is exactly like
so
that.
people who are considering running, I think they should be made well aware that once the rhetoric is over, we expect results, not tantrums or showboating.
Yeah.
And, so I guess that's my sermon for the day, vast listening audience. Serving is hard.
It is.
It really
but
is.
it's rewarding.
It is. Well,
as long as you know what you're doing it for. I love to serve, and it's fun. And I geek out on this kind of information. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, and we all bring something different. All 7 of us bring something different to that table.
Well, I'm glad to see Adam on there, particularly because have somebody with some financial background and strengths.
And it's fun when he's like, "Oh, I've just did the numbers over here."
And I like Larry on there because he knows how to manage. I mean, he's been manager at the railroads all those years, and so he knows how to cut through the crapola and
small business owners.
Yes.
That brings strength to our council. They've poured blood, sweat, and tears into a daily grind. And absolutely,
but it's I don't know. One time I thought many years ago, run for school board, and Rob had shot that down before I even got the sentence out of my mouth. So that'll never happen. But I couldn't do it anyway because I like doing this, and I couldn't do both.
Yeah.
I couldn't do a podcast for profit, so to speak. Even if it's not a lot of profit. But anyway, speaking of which, I have neglected to run my other ads. I got so
I was going
involved.
to say, I kept waiting for the segue into the.
I just got so involved in the conversation because I'm so used to doing it at the beginning.
True.
But anyway, we'll do these ads. A lot of people see the ads at the end anyway.
That's true.
Yeah, Southern Gym, Southern Gym. You've been to Southern Gym. Have you been to the new location?
I haven't yet.
Go by. Take Philip.
I need to go make my Christmas list.
You betcha. What you can do with Philip, you can drop him on that bullpen, as I call it, because they have a place there for husbands to watch TV and drink a beer or whatever, Dr. Pepper,
He's a Dr. Pepper drinker.
or wine or something like that.
I'll drink the wine.
Sherry, you're very welcome. Thank you, Brad. We appreciate all you do. I appreciate Sherry a lot. Those blessing boxes. That's
I delivered this morning to a blessing box.
That's going to be jewels in her crown, I guarantee you.
She's just has a tremendous heart for this community.
Also, our friends over at Old Pro, I have John Williams on next Tuesday. We're going to talk about roofs. And I think, oh, wow, that sounds exciting. It is when your roof needs repair, it's exciting.
I want to know, like, how do they work in this heat?
That's the part I'm going to talk to. He came and did my house, and it was right at the beginning of this heat wave because they're at the hailstorm. And if you want him to come do that for you, call him at 817-734-2756.
Can you ask him if there's like a season that's better than others for replacing your roof?
I'll see him tomorrow. All these people in this segment of ads are in my B&I group.
Oh, fun.
So
I would like to know that.
Yeah,
I mean,
so,
like, when does it set in the most, that tar or whatever they use? I need it to like, when's the best time?
He's a young man, but he still finds it. He told me it's rough because like I said, I see him almost every Wednesday morning at our meetings, and he's struggling a bit to get through it like everybody. I couldn't imagine doing it at my age. But anyway, call John at 817-734-2756 if you need some sort of repair or inspection. I didn't need repairs, and he told me so. He wasn't upselling me, and I sure appreciate that. Same thing with Melissa Harmon at Texas Farm Bureau. She's our agent, 682-804-0534. That's 682-804-0534. And she did our insurance. And a lot of people say, well, our insurance is fine. So is mine. But she was able to save me money and upgrade some of my coverage. So, you don't have to be dissatisfied with your insurance to have her take a look. And if she can't do better, she'll tell you. So there you go. Give her a holler. Also, Lisa Moore Smith over at Stop Restoration, want to get it right the first time. If you have some sort of damage from weather or fire or rain or whatever, or you have mold, which almost every house in Texas probably has some of that, or she and Morris were on the show, about 2 months ago, and we were talking about biohazards. All right, and you think, well, I didn't know what you meant by that. It's unattended death is a lot of it. People pass away and no one knows about it for
my goodness.
And that's classified as a biohazard.
It happens, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That they have to, yes.
And you can't just say, oh, well, let's just move her along and then, and just act as nothing that's normal. It has now created a biohazard.
Wow.
So it happens more, unfortunately, than we think.
Oh, especially in this heat.
Yeah, Lisa is, like I said, they're all B&I members, and she told us, be sure to check in on your neighbors.
Yes.
We have a couple of neighbors that we keep an eye on.
Good.
And because they're
knock.
advanced.
Hi, you're still coming. You can still come to the door, or you're still okay.
Well, if we don't see them for several days, then we start wondering. Then we go and just go see if there's been any activity and that kind of thing. Also, our newest ad sponsor, Candy Gal, she'll be on. See, when is this? Tuesday? She'll be on Thursday.
Cool.
She's going to talk about rates. Candy Gal at 817-925-2661 U Mortgage. They're located in that standalone building in the B&G complex, the one that's on the very south end of it. And they don't work for a mortgage company. They work for mortgage companies that find the best deal.
Oh, that's nice.
And she's our outgoing president of her B&I group. And she's going to talk about the rates and the housing and all this other stuff on Thursday. So I remind you at the new time, too. It's at 10 o'clock. Okay, Jackie Jones here pops up. Thank you, Larry Scott, for speaking up on citizen concerns and for all you and Sherry do for our community. Amen to that. Anything you'd like to add at the end?
Nope, it's been fun.
It's as always. And after we shut down here, we'll find you another date. And
yes.
In September.
Yes, sir.
There's a date I've been promoting. You might want to check in. This September 21st is North Texas Giving Day. And I'm going to have about 7 to 8 of our nonprofit heads here doing. We did this last time, and they will be rotating out of that seat. And it's
fantastic.
It's and Sherry says thank you too. Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to that quite a bit because I do too. I just feel so fortunate to be in this seat to see this at a global level. A lot of people don't see all the things that are going on, and I feel like I'm blessed because I could see just how many people we have in this community to make it work, including yourself.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I love serving, and thanks so much for the opportunity.
Taylor, you all right over there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Just making sure. All right. And we'll see you on Thursday. With Miss Candy.
Bye.